Okay, so now we've looked at how we can publish an eDrawing. Let's take a look at what we can do with it. So back to our foot assembly in eDrawings. You can see here the assembly model. Let's start with icons across the top of the screen. So we've got a general selection tool. We've got pan, rotate and zoom. Exactly the same as we have in SOLIDWORKS. I won't dwell on those too much. We also have zoom to selection, zoom to area. So useful for just quickly zooming into a certain region of interest. We've also got controls for perspective and ambient occlusion as well. So you can get some nice realistic shadowing effects. We also have the standard view orientations, front, back, top, right, etc. Again, exactly like SOLIDWORKS. And also some display styles. So we can view the model in wireframe, shaded with edges, and plane shaded. If we have a look down on the bottom, we have options for kind of resetting the view back to normal. So if you get a little bit muddled up with settings, etc., you can return that back to how it was imported. We've got an animate button. The great benefit of eDrawings is that we work natively in 3D so that we can animate the model. So if someone is a non-CAD user, or maybe he's not that technical, they don't need to worry about zooming, panning and rotating. They can just hit the play button automatically to view the model rotate around. It's a great way for just reviewing the design. We can also explode the view. So if there is an exploded view stored in the SOLIDWORKS file, these will be presented in here, and we can toggle these on and off. So I have a preset exploded view, you can see, with some of the hardware separated out. We can also use the slide bar to play the explode and collapse sequence. Again, this is very easy to use, just dragging the slider back and forth to toggle that mode on and off. To reset this, we just hit reset and go back to the home screen. We can individually move parts. So perhaps you didn't have an explode sequence set up. We can still just pick up individual parts and drag them out just by clicking. eDrawings doesn't support the mates that we have in the SOLIDWORKS CAD file, which is very useful for us just to be able to move these parts around and drill down into that assembly. Again, don't worry, we can't break this. We can hit the reset button and take us back to normal. In the move command, the default is a free drag. There are settings for positional information and translate and rotate. So if we needed to explicitly move a component in a certain XYZ direction, we could do that. We can measure. So if you remember the setting we had when we published the eDrawing in the first instance, as long as that was enabled, it'll allow the recipient to come in here and use the measure commands to start picking up measurements between anything they can click on. So it could be XYZ distances between these two holes here. Notice with any holes or cylindrical objects, we have got settings to choose center to center, or minimum distance or maximum distance between the selected entities. Very useful for working out bolt centers. Anything you click on can be measured. So whether it's just a pair of faces or edges or points, we can extract useful information automatically. We also have sectioning tools. And this, much like SOLIDWORKS, allows us to put a plane through the model and drag back and forth in different orientations. And you can see, very intuitive and easy to use, just by dragging the cursor back and forth. We can change the plane orientation. There's some presets to align to X, Y, and Z directions in the model. We can flip any of these as well, so we can flip the plane's opposite side just by dragging around. We can view normal to the plane. We can also choose to hide the plane if you needed to. Maybe you were just going to do a quick screenshot, or for review purposes it wasn't required to see the cutting plane. And we can also choose to create the cap or not. So you'll notice if I zoom in here, what would be the sectioned faces in the real world, there'd be some solid material there. If we wanted to kind of just see through the skin of the model, we can choose to deselect the cap. It often gives a little bit more of a complicated view, I guess, but useful for seeing inside the part. Again, to return to normal, we can either deselect section or press the home button. And the last thing to look at down here is stamps. Stamps are a list of predefined PNGs. You can actually add your own in here. So if there was a watermark we needed to add to this before we send it out, we can do that, and we can resize these to anything that is appropriate. That means that anyone viewing this file or printing it out has a watermark on there as well. Just adds that extra bit of security, so there's no misinformation or misuse of the file. The last functions down here in the interface are mass properties. This allows us to call back information such as total weight, volume, surface area, in multiple types of units, so you can select those as well as decimal places. We've also got markup tools. Now these are really useful for, I guess, bi-directional communication. eDrawings is great at receiving data back from the recipient. So it could be that you want to create a call out just to put a comment on about a certain component. I'll just put a comment to say change material for that bolt perhaps. It logs a time and date that the user created the comment. And we have a range of other kind of tools. If you wanted to scribble on this, we could start adding additional annotation styles to make that markup more visible. We can even add pictures and images in here as well. We could add dimensions on here. So if there was perhaps another change required, perhaps the distance between these bolts, we could add that on and say, increase to 75 millimeters. So again, a whole range of useful markup tools to allow feedback from the recipient. We can even save those comments back. So if you wanted to send that file back to a SOLIDWORKS user to view by clicking the save icon, it generates a markup file which you can then email or send back to the original sender. You can view any annotations that might have been stored in the model if there was any 3D views. It's useful if you're using SOLIDWORKS MBD. We can recall the 3D views and annotated views to display any information about the model. And the last one is components. So in this case, this is an assembly. So we have a full list of the components that make that assembly up with the structure as it was in SOLIDWORKS. This supports full cross highlighting. So if we select any of these objects in the tree, the model window highlights the corresponding parts as well. And this works the other way as well. So we highlight the parts, the tree is enabled. Now this allows us to also kind of view the, any sort of file names and configuration names and descriptions that would have been stored in SOLIDWORKS. We've also got some controls here for showing all of the model. We can hide parts individually. So if I wanted to right click, we get various options for hiding and showing components. So perhaps I want to hide this cover or hide the sole just to show the mechanism. We can do that. We can even isolate parts on their own. So I might want to just control select, just like in SOLIDWORKS, a selection of components, and then just show those on their own. So we can get a better understanding of a component in its own viewport. Revert back to the, bring all the components back. We can either use these components here to show all, and they get faded back in, or we could have just went and pressed the home button to get us back to the start again.